Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Hello there, this is Kelly, and I just want to say thank you for popping in today, for choosing to spend your time with me, because that's really how I see it. When I know you listen, I think that's sort of like us coming into my little podcast room and having a cup of coffee and just enjoying each other. So thank you for being here. I have a really wonderful guest on today. Her name is Stephanie Dodier, and she is an intuitive eating coach. And I decided to have her on because, number one, I adore what she is putting out into the world right now. On Instagram, she has such encouraging words, and she's a truth teller, and we need that in our lives. We need more of that, right? And so we're talking about intuitive eating and how that is critically linked to listening to your inner voice, how it is a practice to listen to your inner voice, and how changing our perspectives and approaches to eating and food can really change our lives. So let me tell you a little bit about Stephanie. Stephanie Dodier is a clinical nutritionist, weight loss, and emotional eating expert, author, speaker, and host of the podcast, The Beyond the Food Show. Stephanie is creator of the Going Beyond the Food Method and founder of the Going Beyond the Food Academy, a global coaching and online training platform focused on helping women make peace with food and their body using intuitive eating and body neutrality as the foundation. Her integrative and comprehensive approach to nutrition and health focuses on finding the root cause of cravings and aligning body and mind. And I had the wonderful opportunity to be on Stephanie's podcast talking about listening to your inner voice, tapping into your intuition, and really learning how to trust that. And we feel like we're talking about the same thing here. And I'm so excited to share this interview with you. If you want to listen to my interview on Stephanie's podcast, I'll link to that in the show notes as well. But here is Stephanie. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Stephanie Dodier, welcome to In Her Voice. I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm very glad to be with you today and meeting all of your listeners.
Oh, and this is a conversation that I've really been looking forward to over the past week since we had this scheduled, because what we're talking about today is so important and it's so prevalent in women. And that's this idea that in order to be good enough, we must weigh a certain amount, we must look a certain way, we must eat all of the right things. And your expertise is in the area of intuitive eating and body wisdom. And I'm just so happy to dive into this conversation with you.
I think this message needs to reach all the women because it is so liberating once you understand the power that you have to make choices. I'm excited to dive into that.
So let's start with, what exactly is intuitive eating?
Absolutely.
Because I think it's not actually intuitive to know what intuitive eating is.
It is not. Although when I'm finished giving you the description, you're like, oh, yeah, I get it now. So intuitive eating is actually a proven research self-care eating framework that makes you the boss of you. It will teach you in the process to have a healthy relationship to food that empowers you to meet your needs, distinguishing between emotional and physical hunger, and enabling you to tap into your body wisdom. So all these fancy words can be explained in one analogy. Most of us have been in contact with a baby that is hungry or have had children that we fed. And what we know is that when a baby is hungry, it cries. We feed the baby, it stops crying, and then the wheels keep happening in the same way. Hungry, cry, feed. When the baby cries, it's intuitive eating. It feels sensation inside of him or her, doesn't know exactly what it is, but it knows that it needs to be taken care of, express its needs. At that age, we need to feed it. So we go and feed the baby. This ability is what we call intuitive eating. We are born with this inside of each one of us. Up to wherever you are in your age, you still have that. The challenge is that most of us have had experience dieting, restricting, controlling hunger, controlling our craving, controlling what we should and shouldn't eat, tuning down this ability to connect to this innate body wisdom. And then we end up at 40 plus, not knowing when we're hungry or full and being completely confused with food.
Mm-hmm. So what I love so much about this is it's really at the heart of the message that I preach loudly to, and that is we must listen to our inner voice. And I think my listeners might say, well, Kelly, what does being hungry have to do with your inner voice? What does going back to this magical time of when we were babies and knew when we were hungry, what does that have to do with your inner voice? But I really believe that our inner voice can speak to us through our bodies. So how do we begin to reconnect with that body wisdom, as you call it?
Absolutely. So I just want to make a segue because there's a lot of high achieving women here that are very smart. And often when we start talking about that, is so different than what we've known in diet culture that people are like, well, I don't know if it's true. I want to just share with your audience that neuroscience has been brought into the picture of intuitive eating through research and actually was able to study the sensation. It's actually called interoceptive awareness. It's literally sensation through our nervous system that can be monitored, and that gives us those signals of hunger, fullness, and satisfaction. So I wanted to take this segue for everyone who's doubting this, that it does exist. Now, how do we get reattuned to those signals so we can actually eat intuitively in our day-to-day life? The first element is to reconnect with our body, being in our body. Now, diet culture, so this societal movement that worship thinness and that uses weight loss and diet as a mean of achieving this thinner body, which is in diet culture supposed to be more valuable than a curvier or a bigger body, tells us that we can't follow those hunger and signals, and then we get out of our body and we become head people. And we unconnect from this body wisdom. So the first thing is to come back to our body. For us, how we teach it to women, we use something called mindfulness. And basically, we tell the women 5 minutes a day, simply close your eyes in a sit-in and a laying down position, and then using your breath, scan your body up and down. And what that does is it literally reconnect at the nervous system level and at the cellular level, your head with your body. And then you can start with other exercise, re-tapping into this hunger and fullness. But bottom line is being in our body.
And I think that for people who have been in their head for a really, really long time, they might not even know what that feels like. I mean, can you describe what that feels like to be in your body?
For me, it's tingling. That's the best expression that I have of it. So, and for people that are new to this, here's a great tip that we use the visual of a balloon. So literally when you close your eyes and you bring your breath, let's say to your chest, imagine that you are inflating a balloon with your inhale and deflating a balloon with your exhale. And literally what that will do by bringing this visual, you will feel the bones and the muscle elevating, and you will feel that tinglingness, that little kind of the magic at the end of a wand. For me, that's how it shows up. Now, the thing is, Kelly, it shows up differently for everyone. Some people it's sound, some people it's visual, some people it's sensation. So each one of us is different. There's not one answer, but that's how it shows up for me.
So the next question is, so we're doing our 5 minutes of mindfulness, of breathing into all the parts of our bodies, of feeling that magic.
Yes.
And I believe in that magic. How do we apply that to food? I mean, like, to me, it seems like that's like a big jump then. Like, I can feel my body. Now what do I do?
Absolutely. So segue to this, right? As we are learning to reconnect with our body, we also need to give ourselves the permission to no longer be on a diet. That's the first step, right? Now, we'll talk to the term that are very popular today, which is keto, right? Probably all of your audience knows that, but people adopt keto under the term of diet, or perhaps even they say it's a lifestyle, right? But it demonizes carbohydrate. So wherever plan you're on right now, what the first step is to give ourselves the permission to eat all of the food. Because what happens when you don't, you're basically telling your body, let's imagine you're craving for bread or rice. Your body sends you this signal that it wants rice or bread. And you're like, no, you're wrong. I don't want rice or bread because these are evil food. So the first layer to remove is this diet and give yourself a complete permission to eat. What that does is that sends a signal to your body to say, I trust you. Now, yes. Okay, so before you eat, or as you start feeling that hunger coming up, you ask yourself, what do I want to eat? Right? Being mindfully attentive to those signals and say, what do I want to eat? Am I hungry? Like, is it a physical hunger, or is it because I'm upset because an email came into my mailbox, right? Two different things. A physical hunger will grow gradually and slowly. An emotional hunger is sudden, aggressive, and obsessive. So if you go from 1 minute to the other wanting nothing but chips, that is not your intuition talking to you. That's your stress system and your cortisol, right?
Yeah, well, and I just want to jump in because I think that this is such an important distinction, because I think, I've had these conversations with women before where they say, well, yeah, if I eat intuitively, I'm going to eat donuts every day. And I think that what is super interesting to me is that we have to start to discern between our intuitive eating and the other, quote unquote, what I would call voices, right? It's like we have our inner voice and we have our inner mean girl voice that comes from our head, and then one comes from our heart and our body. We have to start to get to know the difference.
Yes. And I think this is why it's so interesting with the work you do, right? You do the work of discovering the inner voice when it comes to life choices, right? This, what I'm teaching, is just a segment of what you're teaching, but just in relationship to food.
Right.
So when you coach perhaps someone professionally, they won't live, you will push them out of their comfort zone into their constraint that they've set up for them and say, let's explore everything. The same thing happens with food. We need to be able to access everything and to ask our soul, our inner voice, what is it that you want? And through that, you have no choice but to explore your relationship to yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. I love it. Okay, so here's a question. I'm like, so many things are coming up for me.
Go for it.
As someone who is a recovering perfectionist, right? So I might look at this and be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to listen to my intuitive eating voice, and I'm going to, have my mindfulness, and I'm on, like, let's go.
Yes.
And sort of I think that the tendency would be to approach it like we have any other diet or any other plan, right? And so then I eat the donut, and then I realize, yeah, that wasn't my intuitive voice. And
Yeah.
then I feel bad because
Yes.
I'm going back to that place of like guilt and shame over what I'm eating. How do we manage that? How do we navigate that?
Absolutely. So here's one thing I want to layer into this discussion is that because intuitive eating has been researched in the context primarily about 30 years ago of eating disorder, and it's now being brought to all women, and we'll discuss why that happens in just a bit. There's actually 10 guiding principles that the researcher has said, here's everything that needs to come into play for you to be a successful intuitive eater. One of those principles is exactly what you described, the food police, the judgment associated with food. So unpack the whole diet, give yourself permission, and then the next thing you need to work on is judgment instead of curiosity. So I like to say to women, perfectionists particularly, try to move away from judgment and bring curiosity in the picture. So interesting. Why do I crave a donut? Why did I eat the donut? What's going on in my life?
Yeah.
And then that allows you, through your eating, to unpack many other segments of your life.
Right. And it just gives us another opportunity to listen to our inner voice.
Yes.
Like it's eating as a practice, really.
Yes.
Oh, it's so good. And just to get back to the judgment piece, I think it's so insidious in the way that we're raised to think of food as being good and bad. Like, for example, I can vividly remember my mom, who like has been on a diet for as long as I can remember, saying things like, "Oh, I was so good today. This is what I ate." Or, oh, I was bad today. I had a candy bar or whatever. And like from a young age, I just remember how food talk was always about good and bad. And it takes so much practice to be aware of that and to understand that we don't have to take that on anymore, that we can like lay it down. We don't have to drag it around with us all of the time. And that all food can be joyful and beautiful and wonderful, but we do have to practice that. It's not something that we can just decide and be done with it.
No, and that's why it's a process of self-discovery. So into this point, I'll bring on the word diet culture. So I kind of alluded to it many times, but diet culture is exactly what you described. It's that phenomenon in society that said first, thinner body are better. So that came in, if you look historically, in the beginning of the 1900s. Up to then, big body were actually the thing to be. And then in the 1900s, we had a lot of change in women's sociologically, and one of them was to give us back into work and give us the right to vote. But then this patriarchal society we're in wanted to control us. And then came in this idea that a woman needs to look a certain way. And then within 10 years, the weight loss and diet industry popped up. And that's what gave color to good and bad food, on top of having to look a certain way. So for women who want to take their inner voice and extend it to food, you need to understand this political, sociological environment of diet culture and say, I'm only responding to how I'm supposed to look, and therefore I'm controlling food to achieve that. And then when I heard my mom say those things, it's because she was caught into this movement as well, not knowing she was.
Right. It's almost like women were brainwashed to believe that the only way that they had any power, actually not even brainwashed, it was true.
Yes.
That the only way that they could sort of be powerful was to look a certain way.
Absolutely. So I think for me, the way that I teach it is to bring this into our awareness, to realize that we have a choice. Many women don't even realize they have a choice to not diet and not look a certain way. Because it was never put forward to them. It was kind of like, well, that's the way life is. I know for me, it was like that till I was 38. I didn't even know there was another choice.
Well, and don't you think that a lot of that comes from this idea that healthy means thin?
Well, that is. So here's the interesting thing when you start studying this. This is called wellness diet. So this is new. The layer of healthiness around size of body is actually over the last 20 years. Because if you go back to the 80s and even the late 70s, like it was not the health we wanted. We wanted the absolute thinness. And then it evolved now to this old concept of like, we need to be thin to be healthy, which is very interesting because when you look at science, which is part of my work, it's not even true. There's not one study that correlates health and weight. And for those who may not know, when you look at research, there's association, which means that X was observed around Y, but nowhere can they link it as a causative factor. Correlation says X cause Y. There's not one study that says that weight cause health issue. Crazy, right?
Yeah, that is crazy.
The next person
that's like let's just sit for a minute and think about that, because that is not the message that the majority of women are hearing, I don't think.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
The weight loss industry, you see?
Yeah.
There's a whole industry, which by the way is $67 billion in 2017, that feeds off of you and I thinking that thinner is not only healthier, but you're going to be happier. There's two correlation here. Thinner is happier and thinner is healthier.
Yeah.
And then this entire industry is grounded on you believing that. Once you empower yourself and you step out of that, then they don't make no money with you.
Right.
Because now you become an intuitive eater, you become body accepted. You accept your body as is, you don't seek weight loss anymore. And you know that health is not thinness, so you don't buy in anymore.
So what do we do? How do we begin to measure health in a different way?
Absolutely. So health, when you look at it from a holistic perspective, which I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar, it's yes, physical, but it's also emotional, mental, and spiritual. So the holistic model of health, which is the most traditional, long-term established, which has in Asian culture, for an example, with traditional Chinese medicine, is more than 5,000 years old documentation. So when we look at health, are you emotionally stable? Are you what I call emotionally intelligent? Can you not react to all your emotion, but logically be approaching your emotion? How's your thinking? How's your mental health? Because many of our unhealthy behavior, if there's such, are driven by your thoughts, right? Coping mechanism, right? So we need to establish mental health. And for some, it's not a diagnosis. It's simply understanding how your thoughts work, so you don't become the victim of it and end up coping in a very unhealthy way. And then spiritual, which comes, to our conversation, it's tapping into your inner voice, right? Recognizing that you must cultivate the space within you that is grounded to spirituality, religion, whatever your thing of choice is. And that brings a lot of safety. And safety brings a lot of, for example, hormonal balance. Because one of the main factors to hormonal unbalance is stress. When we have no faith and we don't feel supported by the universe or God, there's a lot of anxiety related to that.
And don't you think too, I'm sorry to bump in, but I think, when we're talking about stress, that restricting food actually causes a lot of stress.
Fact, science. So restricting food increased cortisol level in women. That's where it was studied mainly, but I'm sure it's the same thing in men. So denying your inner voice creates stress, and then it responds into binging and overeating. So when science looked at binging and overeating and said, where does it come from, is entirely coming from restriction. So if you're binging and overeating on the quote forbidden food, there's nothing to do with willpower. Zero. It's a thought, emotion mechanism that is coming from you restricting food. So when we lift the restriction, right, back to how do we begin, right? We lift the restriction, There's a period, what we call the elastic band, where when we lift the restriction, and let's say donuts were out of your range, you will want to eat the donut. Because your reptilian brain will say, oh my God, we finally can have it. Let's go feast on it.
Yeah.
And then if you study neuroscience, you know that there's nothing wrong with you. It's just part of how the reptilian brain works, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's evolution right there.
Right. So you will have this bounce. You're probably going to eat donut for a bit. And then as you connect to your body and start developing this feeling your body, you're going to like, well, you know what? Every time I eat donut, I have a crash 2 hours later. I'm not like... Whatever your life purpose is or your dreams are, I don't feel good to go chase my dreams. Or when I eat an entire bag of chips, I have an upset stomach all night and I can't sleep well. Do you know what? The chips are allowed, but they don't make me feel good. Do I want that? Am I respecting my body by having the chip? Yeah, I can have them, but they don't make me feel good. Then it becomes a choice instead of a restriction. And then you choose you. You choose your body, you choose your sensation, you choose aligning yourself to your dream. And what I like to say to women is that the way this food makes you feel, empowers you and gives you the tool to chase your dream?
I love that so much because it feels so powerful. Yes. I just feel like when we make choices from that place of like loving ourselves and serving ourselves and saying, you know, this is aligned with what I most want, then it feels like we get to have a say in that. And I think so often that's what's hard about dieting is like, you don't have a say.
And that's why we have so many side effects to dieting. So as much as the weight loss industry pushes the model of dieting to a thinness, what they don't say to any of us is all the negative side effect of it. And we do have the documentation on binging and overeating, but what is never studied is the spiritual aspect of that, right? And you and me working in that field, I see it every day. Women don't look at their dreams, don't even have dreams.
Yeah.
Because they're so caught in thinner and controlling and not achieving that. And then self-esteem go down and self-worth go down. And then you ask them, like, what is your purpose in life? And they look at you like, what do you mean purpose? Like, I got to lose 40 pounds. That's what my goal is.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, and I say that in full transparency, knowing that I've had goals like that before.
Absolutely.
You know, like my goal is to weigh this amount. And I think that it takes this deep work to start to turn the tide on that. I do want to talk about, though, because I think it needs to be said, how do we create goals around our health that can be aligned? You know, for example, someone doesn't feel good in their body because it keeps them from moving the way they want to move. Yep. Or it, you know, they feel out of breath when they're going up the stairs, or they feel tired all the time. Like their body hurts maybe. How do we create goals that are centered around health that might include weight loss, but for a different sort of reason? Like, this is something that I struggle with in just articulating. Like, how do we, for example, how do we love ourselves right now and still want more for ourselves and do that with loving compassion?
So I'll answer this in saying there's stages. So the first thing we need to recognize, wherever you are at right now, if you're caught in what I described diet culture, there's a healing period. So your first set of goals should be to repair the damage that diet had created in your life. So perhaps go through the journey for the next year. Forget, like I like to say, put weight loss on the back burner and say, I'm going to repair the damage of diet culture for the next year. And I'm going to focus on reconnecting to my hunger, my fullness, my satisfaction, feeling my body, do the 10 principle of intuitive eating. And then when I get there, the last principle is actually gentle nutrition and health. Once we've unpacked all the should and shouldn't around food, then we can start talking about health. But instead of talking about health from facts around weight loss, we say, like, how do you want to feel? So that would be the first thing. So kind of stage it, repair, and then when we set goal, the way we like to set goal is on goals with feelings. So instead of saying my goal is to lose 40 pounds, I want to feel strong when I climb the stairs to go to the second floor in my house. Right? It's about feelings. And the thing is, we can feel amazing. So there's an underground movement of women that run marathon, climbs mountain, do yoga, that are, by definition of society, completely overweight.
Right. Yeah.
Like Louise Green, I like to always bring her into the conversation, like Instagram her. The woman just ran a marathon last week, and I don't know exactly her weight, but she's clearly, by society standard, overweight. So for people who say to me, I want to run a marathon, I lose 40 pounds, I'm like, no, doesn't have to. Go look at this woman.
Right. And the marathon is not the path to the weight loss.
Yes.
Like it's something else.
It's achievement, and it is health. So here's another paradigm that I want to break for people. So I kind of said earlier that health is not thinness. So there's another underground movement that's called health at every size. Okay, so you can Google that. You got to Google it in full words, and you will find the work of Dr. Linda Bacon, which has moved the medical world, or is attempting to move the medical world away from weight-centric to weight-neutral. Because she found through the research that weight doesn't equal health, which means then that health is accessible no matter which weight you're at. So you first focus on sleep, stress management, connection to your intuition, and quality of food. And not from a place of restriction, but a place of noticing how the quality of the food makes you feel.
Mm-hmm. So
right?
It all goes back to, how do you feel in your body?
Yeah.
How do you feel in your body? So good. Oh my gosh. I can't believe that 30 minutes has gone by so fast, Stephanie. I just, this is such an important message. And I think too, where it really hits me is just this idea that so many women are waiting on their dreams, on their soul's purpose because of their weight. And I just want to say to everyone, please don't wait anymore, because your soul's true purpose has nothing to do with the size of your body.
Mm-hmm. And there is structured work that can bring you there, bring you at peace with food in your body, so that you can then chase your dream at full force. Mm-hmm. Right now and then, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Stephanie, why don't you tell my audience just a little bit about what you do and how they can connect with you online if they're interested in learning more?
Absolutely. So I'm a clinical nutritionist, which means I have a science background around nutrition and health, but I'm also a woman that has gone through this entire journey since the age of 38 to today, 43. So I have a different spin on it from having experienced it all and having gone through it. So I help women do that program, like to go from where we are caught in diet culture and perhaps suffering to liberating ourselves and live confidently, so you can then go chase your dream. So online, you can find me at stephaniedodier.com, STEPHANIEDODIER. And then the first step is to grab my intuitive eating guide. So right there, when you land on my website, you have a free guide. It's a 7-page PDF where we introduce you to the basic of intuitive eating. And then from there, we've kind of have different programs, 2 main programs. One that will teach you how to apply the 10 principle in your life. And then we also have a bigger program that we go and teach you about emotional intelligence. We do some thought work. We teach you mindfulness. And then we also talk a lot about body acceptance. So we deliver more into that program. That's called the Going to Beyond the Food Academy. And I also have a podcast, the Going to Beyond the Food Show. I was going to forget that thing.
Yeah, don't forget the podcast, especially to all these podcast listeners.
Yes.
And I will encourage all of you to go follow Stephanie on Instagram. Are you Stephanie Dodier on Instagram
Yes,
also?
Steph Dodier, yeah.
Steph, because her feed is so fantastic and her stories are so great and so encouraging. And that's one thing that I have made a very purposeful, intentional move towards, is including in my feed this idea of health at every size,
Yes.
of body acceptance, getting the diet culture out of my social media. Mm-hmm. And that has been huge for me because, if you're not being bombarded with it all of the time, it's easier to create a space where you're feeling encouraged and you're in the practice of intuitive eating on a regular basis.
Absolutely, because you are no longer giving space to diet culture to control you.
Yeah, exactly. Let's be done with it, ladies. Let's be done with it. So, Stephanie, I just want to honor and acknowledge you. Your wisdom is deep and your passion is just bursting out of you, and I feel it inside of me, and the work that you're doing is so, so important. Thank you for being here and sharing this with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity to share that with your community.
I just really love what Stephanie had to say about reattuning. We have these skills. We were born knowing how to eat in alignment, and we were born knowing how to listen to our bodies. And it's about a return to that. And if we ask for help, and if we listen to our inner voice, and we make an intention to do so in a kind, gentle, loving way, we really can do this. And just think of it as another way to listen to your inner voice, which is such a beautiful, beautiful practice. Because here's the thing, when we're listening to our inner voice, we're connected. We're in the right spot. We're aligned with where we should be in this world, in our lives. And that creates joy. It creates satisfaction. It creates a sense of well-being that I really think that we all want. Speaking of well-being and satisfaction, I wanted to share with you that I will be speaking at the upcoming Inspire Leadership Conference here in Syracuse, New York. I'm super excited about it. I believe that we all have a leader inside of us, and I'm going to be talking specifically about how to lead from an authentic heart and to trust your inner wisdom, to trust your inner voice. And I'm so excited to bring an interactive workshop to the people that are going to be there. And I really would love for you to join. So if you live close to Syracuse and you want to pop in for this conference, it's an all-day conference. It's going to be amazing. The speakers are fantastic. And I have a special link for you if you're looking to get a ticket. There is a bit of a discount. And that link is kellycovert.com/inspire. And if you head on over to that, you can get a discount on the tickets. It's a full day of speaking and workshops. And if you're really serious about tapping into your own leadership abilities and awakening that self inside of you that's ready to step into that, this is a wonderful event for you. So if you have questions about it, of course, let me know, but you can head on over to kellycovert.com/inspire to get your ticket. And I hope that I will see you there. Remember, when you are being you, when you are listening to your inner voice, when you are aligning your actions with your soul's purpose, you are being truly you and stepping into your role that you were meant to serve in this world. And we need that. We need you. You are worthy.